Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
You comfortable, Kevin?
I think so.
Just got
Can't
some.
see anybody out there.
With me is Kevin Merida, who I'm sure everyone knows, doesn't really need an introduction, but I will give one nonetheless. Kevin worked at ESPN for quite some time, wasn't it?
5 years,
5 years. Moved on to the Washington Post.
No, backwards order at the Washington Post
Backwards.
first.
Was the Washington Post
22
for 22
years.
years. Went on to ESPN. Was then announced as the LA Times executive editor, and departed almost 10 months ago to this day, and is now working on a bunch of projects. One of them to deal with local news. And so, why don't we start there, Kevin?
Okay, that's good.
You're part of the Los Angeles Local News Initiative. So, and they just raised $15 million from some philanthropists. I'm wondering if you could tell us about what the mission is and how you approach saving local news, which is
Well,
a
I think
Herculean task.
firstly, just contextually, I mean, I think local news is the most important news. I mean, I think it's essential to a democracy. We've been having a big democracy conversation. I think Medill did that study, the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern did the study of the hemorrhaging of news organizations. Something like now, 2.5 a week are dying, and journalists and jobs are disappearing, including in California, a big state like California. So part of this initiative is you're trying to grow the media ecosystem here. Los Angeles Times is still here. It's still a dominant news organization, but there are a lot of places here that are community newspapers, and this is an attempt to harness the power of community newspapers. There's something like 15 partners that are involved in it. The funders are mostly foundations and some individuals, about 15 of those, and really. I think today philanthropists increasingly see their mission tied to journalism. The civic life of a place is certainly important to the people who live there, and I think this initiative is trying to pull a lot of these local news organizations together into a bigger kind of operation, still doing what they do individually. Boyle Heights Beat still covering, Boyle Heights in the East Side, and everything from the Beverly Hills Courier to Cal Matters. People who are in LA will know some of this, but to really just be stronger as a collective than maybe individually they would be.
Do you think hyperlocal is the future for local news?
Well, I think it has a place. I do think. I don't think that everything, to have success, you have to have massive scale. Not every place is big.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of places with no news organizations at all. They just social media. And we know what can happen there.
Yeah.
So I think that, there's a lot you can do if you're, LA Public Press and you're covering local government, and you've got a staff of 7. There's a lot you can do there. So I think everybody who wants to get into journalism now and see where there are gaps, I think it's great that there are increasingly civic-minded foundations and others that want to support that work.
On the topic of local news, let's talk about your former employer, the Los Angeles Times. You left earlier this year. Could you share why you decided to abruptly resign from the paper?
Well, for me, it was time. I thought that I came there to try to transform the place. It's very hard. I thought the last round of layoffs that were there were not something I thought was going to be beneficial to what we were trying to do to grow it. We had a lot of layoffs, and I just, I made some decisions that, it was about structure and how we were structured, and the layoffs and some disagreements that the owner and I had, come to him honestly about what I believe my job is as executive editor, and I just decided it was best for me to leave.
There were some reports about the owner, Patrick Soon-Shiong, wading into the editorial waters there, and that was a point of tension. Was that one of the deciding factors, and did you think it was appropriate for him to be weighing in on editorial matters?
Well, look, the first thing you can say about anybody who owns a newspaper, owns a news organization, they can do anything they want, right? And it's theirs that they've owned, and it's not my experience in the places that I've worked that you have that happen with owners, but I think there are a lot of factors, and I think there's always ways to deal with those. I'm not normally the kind of person that will leave a place. I'm trying to stay someplace.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help the LA Times, because I know how important it is to the people of Los Angeles and California, and really to the nation. It can't fail. So I was doing everything I could to stay there. But I thought ultimately it was best for me to leave.
Yeah. Another one of your former employers, the place you spent the bulk of your career at the Washington Post, that paper's in a bit of turmoil, I would say. I'm curious what you make of the state of the Washington Post, how Will Lewis, the new publisher, is doing, and whether you think both the Washington Post and the LA Times, whether the new leadership there can turn around the businesses, because both of them are losing money at this moment, and obviously they're important for the communities and journalism altogether.
Well, they're certainly two different,
Sure.
entities. I mean, and at the Washington Post, I think, and I hope, knock on wood, the LA Times are too big to fail, to use that term. I think places have struggles. It just shows you that even the biggest places can struggle. And, starting with the Post, the Post has such enormous talent and reputation, and I'm sure they'll figure it out. There was certainly a lot of, controversy and turmoil and unrest and all those things. But, the greatest places have to withstand those things, right? The greatest places, and I think the Washington Post is a great place, that they have to fight through that. I was at the Washington Post, and, at different points we had our struggles, and we had things and challenges, and you have to stay and fight through those. And that's what leadership is about, right? Like doing that. And I think there are a number of leaders there. They want the place to succeed. They're doing great journalism, and I think they'll figure it out.
Both of them are owned by billionaires. And there was a time, I guess a few years ago, where people were talking about billionaires saving media, right? Whether it was Patrick at the LA Times or Benioff at Time and Bezos at the Washington Post. And I guess now that, all these places have had to conduct layoffs, there's no magic bullet, it seems like, to save these institutions. I'm curious what you make of that assessment now. Do you think billionaires are the answer to saving media?
Well, look, I think, like all billionaires are not created equal, like I like to say. But I think having wealth and being able to finance and give a place a chance to rescue it. I was there when Jeff Bezos bought it, and he did a lot to build it up and give runway and investment in it, and I think, and so did Patrick Soon-Shiong. Invested a lot, put a lot into it, and you have to commend people who do that, because journalism is so important. I think journalism's here to stay. I think it's been tried. People try to kill it. You can't kill it. It's survived, but we need more places to practice it, because if we don't have that at the very high levels and at every level, then the profession does kind of atrophy. I don't think that the problem of our news organizations, we're going to put them on the back of billionaires, is not because of them. But I think news organizations, media, very complex business. It's not something you can do in your spare time. You can't be doing, a bunch of other things and then think this is the least important thing. You have to give it attention and or have people in place that are very good, that can run it for you day to day.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
We're about less than 30 days out of arguably the most consequential election in maybe modern American history. I'm curious how you think the press is doing. I know this is a difficult question to answer because the press is so big.
Press is everywhere.
Yeah, the media. How is the press doing by and large, though? How would you assess the coverage that you've seen of Trump? And specifically, I guess, do you think the news media is doing a good enough job calling out the autocratic tendencies or desires of former President Trump?
I say this because I'm extremely self-critical about, my own work and every place I've been. You're always trying to get better. I mean, I think the goal is always to be better. I think everybody out there working is saying, how can we be better today? Mm-hmm. How can I write a better story? What's a different angle? You're thinking through that. I do think sometimes you get unfair criticism too much. I mean, I think that, since you invoked Trump, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't know a lot of what we know about Trump had it not been for journalism. I mean, that's how it got revealed. People won Pulitzer Prizes for the work done on taxes and Russian influence, and most of the things we know are the result of journalism. So I think you can improve, and there's room to improve. I think we have to be aggressive. It's has been said by people in your line of work and in the media business of assessing media that it's very tough to cover Trump in some ways. He's normalized untruthfulness.
Yeah.
And so, but it's that in itself is not an excuse. Lots at stake, and I think rigor is important, and there are lots of storylines. But I do think that I wouldn't say there should be wholesale blanket criticism of the media and saying we haven't done a good job. A lot of good reporting being done every day, and yet I'd say, we could always be better.
Another issue, a thorny issue for the media, it turns out, has been covering the Israel-Hamas war. Yesterday was the one-year anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attacks. More than 100 journalists have died actually covering the war, most of them Palestinian. But here at home, it's been tricky. And obviously, you've probably seen this issue at CBS News. And I'm curious what you make of the interview that was done by Tonita Koppel, who's a CBS Mornings host, and the author Ta-Nehisi Coates. Did you think that was an appropriate interview? I mean, what did you make of the whole thing and how it's been handled by CBS? Yeah,
the inside CBS, I have a lot of respect for decisions that have to be made internally and handling that, and I don't know all of the dynamics there, so I'll pass on that. I was surprised to see the interview was uncommon. Not like I've seen a book author receive. Where the opening question is this could be in the backpack of an extremist. I've never heard that as an opening question for an author. So I'm not sure. Just kind of surprised by the interview. I thought though, Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote his book and represented himself very well, and so. I haven't spoken to him. I know him, but I think he acquitted himself and had a chance to talk about the value of his book and what he wrote and answered every question. But it was a very surprising approach to an interview to me.
Particularly a morning show interview. let's try ending on something positive. I don't know if we only have a couple minutes left, but I'm curious, in this era of polarization, do you think it's possible for any news organization to win broad general public trust, or has this fragmented media landscape made that impossible?
Yeah, look, I think elections tell us that story. We have a very divided country. Is divided along a lot of lines. We have a lot of difficult, tough issues to solve in our country, and there are numerous, right? But I do think that journalism can lead the way, and I say that when in moments of crisis, when there are really big major developments, mass shootings, wars, lots of things that require news coverage and understanding. Hurricanes, man, people are tuning in no matter where they stand on that divide. Like I think that in when you have revelatory work, things that no one knew, you have big audiences for that.
But even with the hurricane, we're seeing
No.
A deluge of misinformation,
And that's
it's like
part
no
of the
one
story.
trusts.
That's right.
So do you think it's possible? I mean, outlets like CNN and the New York Times are obviously not trying to mislead audiences, but if you were to listen to some of these other folks, and particularly right-wing media, you would think that they're totally distorting the picture. And I guess I'm curious, like, can a CNN or New York Times win over trust when others are in different information ecosystems?
Look, we have reached a point in our country where, this we know, that people are going and searching out the sources of information. However uncredible they are, to get information to validate their worldview and their opinions. I think that's not a new development. It may be an accelerated development, but we've been seeing that happen as the sources of information continue to spread, and the availability of it continues to spread. And so, that's a challenge for us in the country. Just massive misinformation, disinformation. How to combat that is extremely difficult, and ironically, we're going to need technology to help us with that.
Yeah.
To be able to call instantly balls and strikes in a way that is a lot more consistent and wide ranging.
I'm not going to hold my breath for the technology titans to wade into this. It seems like they don't want to, but we are out of time.
That was fast.
Thank you for doing this. Yeah, we got through a lot, though, I think.
Yeah, thank you. How's your thing coming?
Now you're flipping the script. We're out of time. We have no time.
Well, but they're still here.
It's going good. It's going very good.
Yeah.
So
Good.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
We'll get drinks afterward.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.